Good morning, Venters. It is a frigid 50 degrees. I know where you guys are at. You're thinking 50 degrees, take off your jacket. It's not even cold. To me, it's cold out here, 50 degrees, especially when you consider that just 2 weeks ago, I was experiencing 100-degree weather. Maybe it was a week and a half ago. So anyway, I wish you guys a happy Halloween. Hopefully you guys aren't eating too much candy, but knowing you Venters, you probably are. Guys, today I wanted to talk about fate. Why does fate seem to give some people wonderful things and give other people horrible things? It's just kind of the way it is, right? The yin and yang of life. Jerry Hicks found a $20 bill outside of a speedway in Boone, North Carolina. Feeling rather lucky, he took that $20 bill into the speedway and purchased a lottery ticket. But this lottery ticket purchase comes with an asterisk. If you've ever gone into purchase a lottery ticket, you know there's about 20 or 30 to choose from, ranging from $1 or $2 tickets all the way up to probably $20 or $30 tickets, right? Anyway, he chooses to buy a simple $2 scratcher ticket, and Jerry Hicks ended up turning that $2 scratcher ticket into $1 million. Now, Jerry, his plan with his $1 million was to go ahead and retire after 56 years of being a master carpenter. And Mr. Hicks decided that what he wants to do with that money is to help support his kids, who I assume are adults. And we've talked about this before. If you pass away and leave your kids $1 million, hey, that's great. But at the same time, most people struggle when they're in their 20s and 30s and 40s, right? And if you could actually help your family members while you're still alive, you could probably enjoy it with them and see how they can either thrive or totally blow it, right? But either way, a lot of people do this where they kind of wait until they pass on to help their kids out with their inheritance. I think that's where we're kind of doing a disservice to a lot of young families, because I think we all would agree a lot of young families split up because of financial woes. And if you're in a situation where you can actually help your kids and your grandkids while you're still alive, Jerry Hicks, good for you. That's the way to go. Now, sticking to fate, Geraldine Giblett spent her life savings helping her daughter, who was going through breast cancer treatments. Her daughter's name, Laurencia Jackson, and one of the things that she was celebrating was the ringing of a bell. What do you mean by that, Jesse? Guys, all around the country, when people are overcoming things like breast cancer or whatever cancer they might be dealing with, they celebrate in hospitals by ringing a bell. And the ringing of the bell signifies a victory over cancer. Now here's the thing, Geraldine Giblett had basically invested her whole life savings into her daughter Laurencia's treatments. Now I don't know about you, but if you're gonna go broke, one of the things that you're probably more than willing to go broke for is for the life of your daughter or the life of your kids, right? Anyway, Laurencia gets to ring the bell. It's a joyous moment. So Geraldine decided to celebrate her daughter Laurencia's conquering of cancer by going into a convenience store in Tallahassee, Florida, and she went ahead and purchased a $10 scratcher lottery ticket, not unlike Jerry Hicks. Where Jerry Hicks won $1 million, Geraldine Giblett was able to win $2 million. Both of these stories are stories of fate. What caused somebody to drop $20 and what caused Jerry to be in the right spot at the right time to grab that? He goes in to buy his favorite scratcher ticket. They're out of it, so he buys another one. He doesn't spend the whole 20 bucks, but he buys a $2 scratcher, and he ends up winning $1 million. I don't know about you, but if that happened to me, I would think it was meant to be. There's a lot of you that would agree with me. Then, of course, there's those among us that would say, hey, that's just coincidence and luck. Great story, but no big deal. And I guess you could look at it either way. One of the things that was interesting is that they both chose lump sums. Jerry had the ability to take $50,000 a year over the next 20 years, but instead, he decided to take his payments in one $600,000 lump sum. And I believe after taxes, they said it equated to like $450,000. Nice job, Jerry. Now, on the other hand, Miss Gimblett in Tallahassee had the ability to take one lump sum of $1.6 million. So I'm assuming after taxes and stuff, she probably got to take home probably a little bit under $1 million, right? Either way, fascinating stories. Congratulations to both of you. It sounds like you both deserved the twist of fate going in your favor. But now, just for fun, shits and giggles, let's talk about something that didn't quite work out. I don't know if you guys heard about this, but yesterday I turned on my news feed on YouTube and I found out that in Chicago, a longtime Pepsi bottling plant went ahead and laid off about 130,000 employees. So obviously the last 24 hours has not been that fun for those employees that went ahead and had their job discontinued. Many of them were just a couple of months or a couple of years away from their full-blown retirement. So hopefully this is something that they'll still be able to overcome and kind of go into the twilight of their lives, and it won't affect them too horribly. But let's be honest, a lot of people live paycheck to paycheck, and I'm sure out of these 130 employees, not all of them were super successful, right? There's always going to be some that are struggling. So this was probably truly a nightmare for them to hear. Now you might be thinking, Jesse, I'm sure Pepsi employs hundreds of thousands, if not millions of people across the country and across the world. For them to only have to lay off 120 people is not the absolute worst, and I would probably agree with you. But when we put ourselves in the place of those 130 employees, all of a sudden it's kind of hard to say that, isn't it? What's interesting about this is it comes 3 months after a new 3-year contract where approximately 70 union employees were given new contracts. Here's the problem with unions and with their labor negotiations. It seems like they always ask for things that are a little bit above and beyond what you would expect people to ask for, yet it seems like companies always end up capitulating and giving in to their demands. But right alongside that, is it just me, or every time unions end up getting involved and getting what they want, it ends up leading to layoffs? So here's a situation where just 3 months ago, 70 union employees get rewarded with their new 3-year contract, and here we are less than 100 days later, and the way they probably make do with those payments is to simply cut the jobs of 120 other employees. Whenever you're on the picket line fighting for things, there's a good chance that you're fighting for one of your fellow people in that picket line to get a really nice raise. And the way they're going to take care of those payments is by cutting off your job and laying you off. It just seems like a really bad pattern, doesn't it? And then when you hear that all around the country and even all around the world, a lot of companies are doing these layoffs all at the same time. Almost every other day I speak to somebody that I'm trying to convince to come back into the teaching world, and a lot of times they left the teaching world to get into tech jobs. Well, I'm sure you guys have heard over the past year, a lot of tech employees have been laid off, and those are the ones that are creating videos online where they talk about how they applied to 500 or even 1,000 jobs, and they can't even get past a second interview. Kind of devastating. That's what fate does to us. That's why I always urge you, when you're out and about on your walk, dive into your think tank. Come up with options for yourself. Do you want to do what I did and start a YouTube channel? Guys, starting a YouTube channel is one of those 1 in 1,000 things, right? 1 in 1,000 YouTubers probably makes it to the point where he can afford to live on YouTube. But for most of us, it's got to be more of a fun hobby. And fun hobbies don't always make money. So, again, when you're on your think tank, and when you're on your walk, jumping into your think tank rather, think about options you can do. Keep your resume up to par. So this person's backing up, and they didn't really see me, but at the same time, I heard them. I kind of like gasoline-powered vehicles for that reason. When you can hear the car, you have no excuse for getting hit by the car. Every now and then, though, you'll see people walking around with earbuds in, and if those earbuds are playing loud music, you pretty much are deaf when it comes to your surroundings. So, if you're listening to music, maybe only play it in one ear so you still have an ear free to hear if a car is about to hit you. So anyway, why do I bring up these things? I bring up these things because fate happens in such weird ways. I was always told that Einstein was like a C student. And if you would have kind of made a prediction what's going to happen with him in his life when he was a C student, you probably would have assumed that he would just have an average life. But obviously we know about Einstein and his theory of relativity and this, that, and the other. And even nowadays, we still look back upon his life and we celebrate him for the genius that he was, right? But back in the day, he was an average C student. Something happened, fate took hold, and voila, we have the Einstein that we all know and love today. But it probably wasn't a prediction that you would make if you would have known him back in his school days. And a lot of this could be said for us venters too. How many of you were straight A students, thought you were going to get a job in the business sector or whatever, and many of you ended up becoming anything but business legends, right? How many of you were C and D students like Einstein, and now you own your own company and you're a success? So when we talk about fate, let's take it into walking. Why are you watching a video of a guy that walks every day? Is there something to fate? When we think about fate, what we don't necessarily think about is that there would be an author of the story. If this is your fate, if somebody up there, so to speak, is writing your story and you're just living it, why are you here watching a walking video? Could this be somebody's grand way of telling you you need to start a walking routine? You need to put yourself on a pathway of fate that leads to a different future where you're actually healthy? Could you be starting a walking routine because it's your job to leave a legacy of walking to your kids and grandkids? And if you don't leave that legacy to them, is there a chance that they might end up becoming one of these people that ends up having a heart attack or stroke when they're only in their 20s, 30s, or 40s because they didn't have their grandma or grandpa in their life to help them get a walking routine? Now, I know that sounds goofy, right? I don't want to make it sound like watching a YouTube video is going to change your life, but the truth is, I've already had a handful of you guys tell me that it has changed your life. Six Pack Sean, I don't know if I'm ever going to see you again, buddy, but one thing I can say is the idea that you lost 25 pounds and almost all of your lab work that came back from your last doctor's visit was better. Man, that's all the payment I need. Glad to hear that you're doing better. And if I never see you again, Sean, I still want you to have a wonderful future and a healthy future. Lily, I haven't heard from you in the last couple days. Hopefully you're still with us, but again, I don't know. And sometimes fate can be cruel like that. Sometimes you can wake up and you have an entourage of people around you, and at other times you don't. So the video that I was watching that was talking about the video that I was watching that was describing the Coca-Cola layoffs, obviously I took a couple of comments from that video, and I want to share those comments with you. At Six Figures 33087 says, this is why I'm never loyal to a company. F them all. You want to know something, Six Figures? It sounds like, based on your handle name, that you're probably an entrepreneur, you probably own your own business, or maybe you're into investments. Either way, it sounds to me like your cup of tea is not sitting at a desk working for a company all your life, because you're very much aware that at any point in time, they can cut those strings and let you go. And that's true. I would just argue the fact that there's a lot of people out there that aren't cut out to be business owners. They aren't cut out to be entrepreneurs. So again, you can easily say, hey, F all the companies, don't be loyal to them. But if that's your stance, people, make sure you have a backup plan. Even if that backup plan is just a job down the street working at any random business, that's better than no plan at all. But I agree with you completely. It seems to me like there's a lot of companies out there that expect you to give them a 2-week notice whenever you plan on leaving the company. But at the same time, it's not like they ever let you go and say, hey, we're letting you go in 2 weeks. A lot of times it's grab your stuff, we're going to escort you out of the building, or whatever the case might be, right? Here's one of the reasons why I still suggest you give your company a 2-week notice. If you give your company a 2-week notice, it sounds to me, based on everything I've heard, that unless you're a school teacher or a paraprofessional or something where they literally need to replace you before they allow you to leave, it sounds to me like normally when you give a 2-week notice, normally you have a situation where the company just says, okay, we're going to go ahead and accept your 2-week notice, but we're going to go ahead and ask you to leave the building now. A lot of times people don't want to leave a 2-week notice because they already have a job that's ready to have them start. I think you should go ahead and tell your boss anyway, because 90% of the time they're going to take your 2-week notice and they're going to ask you to just call it your last day anyway. So you fulfilled your obligation of leaving a 2-week notice and you were still able to get out of your job on time. And guys, a lot of times your new job is totally willing to wait 2 weeks if you do want to leave your notice. You got to remember, one of the things that certain companies look out for is your references. And if they want to speak to the supervisor of your previous job, I'd like to think that they're within their rights to do so. And if they reach out to your supervisor and your supervisor says, you know, hey, this person pretty much left us hanging, that might not look too good for you. I've talked to a lot of teachers, supervisors, and you'd be amazed at the stuff that I hear. A lot of times you have situations where you find out this new teacher you're hiring has a couple red flags. And a lot of times it's because they tend to leave schools high and dry. At the same time, I'll tell you, in the past, before I was a recruiter, a lot of times my jobs would be one where I would let them know, I'm out of here. I'm calling this my last day. So it's not like I always practiced what I preach, but now that I know what I do, trust me, your references, especially going forward, might be a little bit more important than they were in the past. At Stephen Dawson 3863 says, Pepsi sells a 2-liter bottle of soda for $3. That's why it closed. No one is buying that crap. Hey, Steve, I'm going to throw up something that might cause a little interest here. Wouldn't it be crazy if sales were down, not because they're charging people too much for a 2-liter of soda, which, by the way, $3 does seem high. The last time I drank soda, like back in the day, I think it was like 99 cents for a 2-liter bottle. If this guy is right and the 2-liter bottle is now $3, if you guys don't mind, share that with me and let me know. Is that true? And I think the next time I go into Fry's, I think I'm going to check the price of the 2-liter. $3 sounds crazy high. But here's what I was going to say, Steve. We have literally millions of people in this country that are no longer drinking soda because they're taking Wegovy. Wouldn't that be interesting if you found out that these weight loss medications were actually starting to affect Procter & Gamble's bottom line, PepsiCo's bottom line, Coca-Cola's bottom line. You know, all of the times you go to the store, you're assuming that people are buying just as much food as ever. But the reality is, now that prices are high, a lot of people are starting to go for the generics, right? And then of course there's people that are spending all their money on these weight loss medications, and they probably want nothing to do with things like soda anymore. So it's going to be interesting to see if places like Pepsi and Coke end up having even more layoffs. But again, you could be right, Steve. If Pepsi went from $1 for a 2-liter to all of a sudden $3, I could see a lot of people changing their buying habits there. So I'm thankful that you left that comment. The final comment of the day comes from @TruthSeeker21, 4awake5. God, these names they come up with are so bizarre. It says, so you better thank a union member, smiley face. You know, it's funny, I think when we think of unions, we think of people that are looking out for our best interest. And they probably are. I mean, if you stood in a picket line and you ended up being rewarded with a really high-paying job and a really nice raise, I suppose it would be easy for you to be pro-union. But if you knew that there were a certain percentage of your coworkers that were actually going to get laid off because of it, that might be something that would make you change your mind. And guys, it seems like whether it's the Pepsi folks or whether it's the United Auto Workers or this, that, and the other, it seems like every time a union wins anything, half the people in the union end up losing their jobs. And again, I might be exaggerating when I say half, but I don't know about you, but if I stood in a picket line and my reward was being laid off while my coworkers got everything their heart desired, I would be really bitter. So again, are unions important? Yeah. But from what I remember growing up, unions were set up because there used to be a lot of unsafe working conditions. And they used to work you to the bone, right? Work you 6 or 7 days a week. And we needed standards like a 40-hour work week and stuff. So unions have definitely taken us far. Even if you're not a member of a union, many of us still have that standard 40-hour work week. Many of us work in buildings where OSHA comes in and makes things safer, right? So things have improved thanks to unions. But at the same time, nowadays it seems like all unions do is ask for outrageous things. The other day we were talking about the port workers. Not only did they want a 70% raise over 5 years, which seems really crazy to me, but in addition to that, they wanted all future automations to cease. Now that sounds cool at first, like, yeah, screw the machines. We're not going to give our jobs up to machines. We don't want Americans losing their jobs to machines, and I agree with you, we don't. But the problem is if the rest of the world goes the route of automation and AI, and we're stuck in the present world of not going that route, you might not notice problems today, but that'll eventually lead to problems tomorrow. When the world is upgrading, you know, and becoming the 2.0 version of itself, and you're not upgrading, then in essence, you're falling behind. So I love everything that they're trying to do. I love that they're trying to get the biggest raise they can, but it seems like every time they're asking for a huge raise, it seems like the companies try to get them to come down to something more realistic, and it seems like that never ends the strike. It seems like union members are really sticklers on getting exactly what they want, and once again, it always leads to at least a percentage of the union getting laid off. If you've ever been laid off while your union members got raises, let me know. We don't really hear these stories too much. I don't think I've ever in my life ever talked to a person that was even on a picket line, but that's the power of a group of venters. Some of you might have, and some of you guys might have even been on that picket line yourself. Either way, these are the twists of fate that get handed to each and every one of us. You probably thought you were going to be married forever and live a wonderful life where you ride off into the sunset, and maybe your life didn't go that route. Good morning. Have a good walk. And sometimes fate leads you around a corner where you see an old friend, like that neighbor friend of mine walking her dog. I want you guys to have a beautiful day. Every time there's a bad story out there, there's a good story out there too, and I'm gonna try to find more of them. Have a great day. We'll see you tomorrow.